Hello, it's me again, Knox, back with another story. But before we get into it, I want to say thank you guys so much for the overwhelming support. We've had not only a spike in viewership, but a spike in subscribers, and I cannot thank you guys enough. So, again, thank you guys so much for wanting to watch and listen to me narrate these stories. With all that being said, this story comes from r/horror stories, titled, My 4-Year-Old Son Has an Imaginary Friend Called the Tall Boy. Big shout out to the author, Toasted Squishmallow, for allowing me to narrate their story. And of course, B, also known as Studio Bumbles, for the lovely art accompanying the story. Links to the story, as well as B's channel, will be in the description below, as always. But I'll also put the link to the story in the comments below, because YouTube has yet to verify my channel, allowing external links. So let's get into it. This is My 4-Year-Old Son Has an Imaginary Friend Called the Tall Boy. I need help. I don't know where else to turn, and I know how this is gonna sound, but I'm terrified for my son. This morning, my 4-year-old looked at me over his untouched cereal and said, "Daddy, the tall boy says he can take me to see Mama. My wife died last year. A car accident. My son barely remembers her." Let me back up. It started about 6 months ago. My son, I'll call him C, started talking about a new friend. At first, I thought it was sweet. He's an only child. I work from home, and honestly, I thought maybe I wasn't doing enough to socialize him. Kids his age have imaginary friends, right? Honestly, I was kind of relieved he had someone to play with, even if it was just pretend. He called him the Tall Boy. The name was a little odd, but he's only 4, so I didn't give it much thought. I asked C what the Tall Boy looked like. He just shrugged and said, "He's tall." Alright then. For the first month, it was harmless. C would have conversations with the empty air, he would giggle at jokes I couldn't hear, and he would often be sitting on one side of the room playing with his toys, and he would always set out a toy for the tall boy. When I would ask him what they would talk about, he'd say, "Just stuff. He's my friend." Then he started setting a place for the tall boy at dinner. An extra plate, an extra cup, and he would get upset if I didn't leave an empty chair next to him. "That's where the tall boy sits," he would say, looking at me like I was being rude or something. So naturally, I went along with it. What else was I supposed to do? It wasn't hurting anything for me to set out an extra plate or cup for dinner. The first red flag came about 2 months in. We were reading before bed, and out of nowhere, C says, "The tall boy says you had a dog named Dakota when you were little." I stared at him for a moment. I did have a dog named Dakota when I was a kid, but he died when I was a teenager. There's no way he would know that. I never told him I had a dog. I don't even have photos of Dakota, and my wife never met Dakota. There's no way he could have known. Who told you that?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "The tall boy," he said, like it was obvious. I told myself maybe I'd mentioned it before and just forgot. Maybe he heard me on the phone with my sister or something. I was looking for any rational explanation. But then he said, "The tall boy says he got hit by a truck." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. That's exactly how Dakota died. My mom told me he had run away because she thought I was too young to know the truth. I didn't find out the truth until I was 16. "See, where did you hear that?" "The tall boy told me," he said, and went back to looking at the book, like he had just told me the sky is blue. I started to pay more attention after that. C talked to the tall boy constantly, in his room, in the living room, even in the bathroom. Wherever C was in the house, The tall boy was apparently there too. But never when we left the house. Never at the park or the grocery store. Only at home. I'd even see him waving at an empty corner of the room, or even an empty chair, every time we left. Then I started hearing things. Whispers when C was supposed to be asleep. At first I thought he was talking in his sleep, but when I pressed my ear to the door, I swear I heard two voices. C's high-pitched chatter, and then something lower, raspier. I would tell myself that it was just the house settling, or some weird sound carrying in from outside. Then the breathing started. I'd be working in my office, and I'd hear it. Slow, deliberate breaths, like someone breathing right behind me. I'd spin around, nothing. It would happen in the kitchen while I was making dinner. I'd feel like someone was behind me, and I'd feel breath on the back of my neck, and nothing would be there when I turned around. It would happen in the hallway when I was folding laundry. Always when I was alone. Doors started opening on their own. I'd close C's door at night, and an hour later, it would be wide open. Trying to convince myself that it was nothing, I blame it on the old house, drafts, bad hinges on the doors, that sort of thing. But then, C's room started to get cold. Not just cold, freezing. Even with the heat on, even in the middle of the day. I bought a small space heater. It didn't help. I had to put extra blankets on his bed, and he would sleep in a hoodie. When I asked him if he was okay, he would just nod and say, "The tall boy doesn't like when it's warm." That's when his behavior started to change. He got quiet, stopped playing with his toys. He would just sit on his bed and stare at the corner and have full conversations with nothing. When I tried to join him, he'd get quiet and look at me like I had interrupted something important. He stopped eating, or barely ate. He would just push his food around and say he wasn't hungry, but I'd catch him whispering to the empty chair next to him. Once, I swear, I heard him say, "No, I can't. Daddy will get mad." I tried talking to him, asked him if the tall boy was being nice to him. C looked at me with big, terrified eyes and said, "I can't make him go away." What do you mean, buddy?" I asked him. "He won't go away," he whispered. "I asked him to, but he said no." I told him imaginary friends aren't real, that he could just stop playing with him if he didn't want to anymore. C shook his head. "He's not imaginary. He's real." I didn't know what to do. I thought about therapy, but what was I supposed to say? My kid has an imaginary friend that scares him? They would just tell me that this is a phase. Then, 3 days ago, C said something that made me feel like I got punched right in the gut. We were sitting on the couch, watching cartoons, when he looked up at me and said, "The tall boy said that Mama was listening to the Yellow song when she died." My heart stopped. My wife was listening to Coldplay's Yellow when the drunk driver crossed the median. I know this because the song was still playing when the paramedics arrived. I never told anyone that detail. It's too painful. I can't even hear that song anymore without thinking of her. There is no way C could have known that. "C, how do you know that?" "The tall boy told me," he said. "He says he was there." I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab him and shake him and demand to know how he knew that. But he's 4. And he looked so small and scared that I just held him and told him it was okay. But it's not okay. Last night I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, slow. I grabbed my gun from my side table and went out to check. C's door was open. I hid my gun behind my back and looked. C was sitting up in his bed, staring at the doorway. "C?" "He's here," C whispered. Who's here? The tall boy. I slowly turned on the light, hand shaking, and then nothing. But C kept staring at the empty doorway, eyes wide. C, no one is here. Yes, there is, he said, and started to cry. He's always here. I brought him to my bed. He clung to me and cried himself to sleep. And this morning he said it, the thing that made me come here, come to Reddit, hoping someone can help me. The tall boy says he can take me to see Mama. I asked him what he meant. He says if I go with him, I can see her again, C said, his voice flat, emotionless. He says she misses me. I'm writing this while C is at preschool. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should keep him at home. I don't know if leaving the house even matters because this thing, whatever it is, seems tied to C, not just at the house. I'm scared that whatever the tall boy is, he's trying to take my son from me. Has anyone else experienced anything like this? What do I do? I can't lose him too. I can't. Please, if anyone has any advice, I need it. And that's the end of My 4-Year-Old Son Has an Imaginary Friend Called the Tall Boy. If you made it this far, thank you. But also, I want to let you know that this is part 1 of a 4-part story. If you want me to read the other parts, please let me know in the comments down below, as we've already secured the permissions to do so. As always, thank you guys so much for watching/listening, and again, big shout out to the author, Toasted Squishmallow, for the great story, as well as B, also known as Studio Bumbles, for the fantastic art. I've been Knox, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye now.